I've always been a gardener. Ever since I can remember, way back as a tiny child, I loved growing things. So I helped my dad in the garden when we were kids. And eventually, of course, when I got married, it was automatic that my husband and Alf and I would have a garden. And in those days, lots of people did anyway, because that was, 62 years ago. And so we built our house, quarter-acre section, big veggie garden, and we grew lots. I also like to know where my food comes from, so that's a part of it too. It's not just economic, it's the quality of my food. Well, Costley Street was, as I say, a quarter-acre, and it eventually became too much for me. I sold up and started on this smaller property here. And so this is just 400 square metres. I brought a lot of the garden with me, and so it's established now in very concentrated form. I had rain tanks installed, so I collect water off the potting shed and off the house as well. But I also put in a bore because, see, I make loads of compost, and that's full of microorganisms that are beneficial to the soil and make really healthy food. But if you pour chlorinated water on your compost or on your vegetables, then you're killing all that microbial life off. That's what chlorine is designed for. So I use bore water for all my watering. I don't have it reticulated to the house because that would be quite expensive, but it would be nice. You never know, one day. So the landscaping started in the middle of April last year, and by August I was supplying some greens to the Carterton Farmers Market. So I used the compost obviously in the veggie garden, but I also incorporate it in the potting mix that I make, because lots of stuff goes here in pots. All my fruit trees are in root trainer bags, and that limits the size because I want my trees to stay miniaturized. So the size bags I've used are designed so that my trees should get no more than about 6 feet high, so I can manage them from the ground, the harvesting, the pruning, and also covering against frost or bird attack. So that has enabled me to plant my trees quite close together, about 1.5 metres apart. And I've been able then thereby to use a lot of variety because I'm a big fruit eater. I love my fruit. And so the orchard is planted out the front of the property, and that's underplanted with smaller items, and round the base of the trees I've been growing lettuces and onions and bits and pieces of spinach and that sort of thing that are just able to cohabit in the orchard. Celery over here, and leeks, and a little bit of spinach, a bit of salad stuff, and I'm going to try those. I'll have more celery and spinach and bok choy and lettuce in the hothouse. Well, let's have a look at what we've actually got in the garden, starting with the orchard. So the first fruit tree that went in was a pear tree, and then I put another one in, different variety, for a companion for cross-pollination. So that's actually got 2 sorts on it. So that gives me 3 different maturity dates for pears. And then there's apples, several different varieties, some grafted onto one stem. and there's plums, nectarine, peach, including black boy, and figs. And I've got a couple of citrus out the front, a lemon and a tangelo. And then there's the small fruits. So there's grapes on the fence, because I put up a big fence too as a windbreak. And of course that gives me vertical growing space and extends my capacity here. There's blackberry there, there's tayberry, and of course different varieties of these too. So there's 2 figs, and there's, 2 of this and 2 of that. And of course while they're small, that has left some space on the fence, so I'm growing broad beans. I've grew broad beans in the winter, and I'm growing runner beans this year. And so they're all cropping now. And lots of different varieties, different colours, different maturity dates. So that gives me an extended season for the bean crop. And there's, what else is there? There's Florence fennel on the fence line, there's dill, and further around there's pumpkins. I've got cucumbers, different kinds of cucumber. I'm even trying a melon. I don't know if it's going to mature. We'll see. There's also zucchini out there. I've got some in the backyard, but I've also got some out the front. They were planted later, but they're doing just as well. And incidentally, I said I've got no lawn. So amongst the trees there, it's all wood chip and the arborist mulch. So what I did in the front garden, quite different to how I managed the mulching in the back, I lay all the whole area with thick newspapers, wads of newspaper, and in the pathways, it'd be several newspapers thick. They'd be soaked and laid down, and then the mulch on top. Of course, underneath the newspaper, there was coffee ground and my own homemade compost and leaves and loads of seaweed, and that's great for the soil as well. So that whole area is very productive. And so when I want to put a lettuce plant in or something like that, I just take a sharp dibble and open up a hole and pop them in, replace the mulch, and away they go. And I haven't had to do a lot of watering out there because the mulch is quite effective at keeping the water level up for the fruit trees especially. The top things have needed a little bit more hosing now and again. So, but I haven't had to do the big broadcast watering very much at all. And the whole area here, apart from inside the tunnel house of course, is going to be lined with possibly carpet in this area here, and out the front more likely to be wads of newspaper and cardboard, so that it's easy for me to slice through and plant my pots of daffodils and other things. And of course I've got a flower bed with perennials mainly, things to attract the bees, lots of lavender and other bee attractants to bring those very necessary critters into the garden. My garden was also included in the Pukaha garden tour as an example of a productive backyard. What am I harvesting at the moment? This morning I just pulled a radish. That's a tokanashi radish. It's a Japanese kind of radish, highly nutritious, and so I can just use that a little bit at a time. You can grate it into your salad. I have lots of different coloured tomatoes, and just got them dotted around the property in little pockets where they can be trained up and confined to the narrow positions where I've got space for them. I've mixed a lot of things up. My flowers and my veggies are all mixed. So I planted leeks out in the orchard, just among the trees. Actually, the vegetables and the flower plants don't know that we've categorised them as one or the other. I think they're quite happy living in the same bed together. So I grew my leek plants from my own seed that I'd saved in Costley Street, and so those plants are now coming away very nicely. My parsnips are doing well. The carrots are looking great. I've just harvested some eggplant. What else is out there? Beetroot. That's ready to harvest. And the beetroot leaves too. You know, I'm told that the beetroot leaf has more nutrition in it than the root. So I eat both. So I've got a bit of kale and a bit of silver beet, New Zealand spinach, and of course the peppers in the hothouse. I've got peppers coming along very nicely, just colouring up now, and a surplus of those, so they'll go to the farmer's market. And I'm also growing Malabar spinach, which is a climbing spinach, a very thick, juicy leaf on it. But there is another reason why I'm so keen to encourage others to start gardening, start producing their own food. And that is that I think that the way that we as a human species feed ourselves is pretty well unsustainable. The carbon footprint involved in getting food from wherever, often overseas, to our table is huge. And I'm concerned about climate change and what kind of a future my children, my grandchildren are going to have. So I think we can, each of us, do something to reduce our carbon footprint by growing some of our own food. Or if we don't have that ability for one reason or another, then at least be far more conscious consumers. Looking at the labels, where did things come from? Looking at the waste involved in our purchases. I've been having workshops, lots of visitors. I've involved lots of people, my friends, my family, community people, in the planting of the fruit trees and making a little ceremony of it. We even had an official opening where the mayor planted a tree. You know, people often comment about how amazing this all is, and sort of how on earth did I do all this? Well, I didn't do all this. I had wonderful help. My landscaper Richard has been absolutely a blessing, very capable, very empathetic to what I want, and so I couldn't have done it without him, and also Linton, who's dug the holes. Now it's really stony here, and he dug the holes for the fruit trees and all the big plantings around. And then people like my family, my son came and helped dig the deep holes down here for these subtropical plants, these guavas here, cherry guavas, and that was a huge job to do, because it was all damp course under that, base course for the concrete under there. So yeah. And my sister made some windows for the potting shed, LED light, and so that makes that just very, very attractive. And so involving, gardens often involve create memories, because someone gives you a cutting and somebody brings you a plant and so forth, and so you always remember those people by those plants as the seasons come and go. There's been so many people involved in making this place what it is today. People from this Carterton community, people from schools, from community groups, my friends, my family. It's just been amazing how it's all come together, and so happily. You know, we've celebrated different milestones, and I couldn't have done it on my own. It's really a credit to this wonderful community that I belong to and that belongs to me. I love my home here in Carterton.